Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for waiting for us to start our presentation. So in today's webinar, we will explore how our online communities have been used to fuel employee engagement, boost retention, and expertly navigate PR fiascos. So my name is Ashley. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at FieldCycle, and I'm very excited to have you all with us today. So before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. So if you have any questions at any time throughout today's presentation, feel free to submit them to either the question or chat box inside the GoToWebinar interface. We will catalog them throughout and come back to them at the end of today's webinar. Also, I wanted to mention, if you haven't joined us before, we have a substantial catalog of case studies, white papers, webinars, and industry resources located on our website at FieldCycle.com, which I encourage you to take a look at when you have time. So today's webinar should take about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we will go into our Q&A session. With that, I would like to introduce our presenter. So Nick is our Senior Research Manager at FieldCycle. For over 2 years, he has overseen numerous research projects across a variety of industries, including insurance, entertainment, and retail. Prior to joining the FieldCycle team, Nick worked as a research assistant at Northridge Consulting Group. Thank you for joining us today, Nick.
Thank you.
Mai is our Associate VP of Client Services. She has spent most of her career helping the top Fortune 500 companies answer their most important business questions. Prior to joining the FieldCycle team, Mai worked as a Senior Research Manager at Lieberman Research Worldwide. Thank you for joining us today, Mai. With that, I will turn over the presentation to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Ashley said, my name is Nick Chadwick. I'm a Senior Research Manager here at FieldCycle. Today, we're going to speak to you about employee engagement, the missing X factor. And I'm thrilled to be presenting with Mai Kang, who will help me walk through the webinar.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. My name is Mai Kang. I'm the Associate Vice President of Client Services here at FieldCycle. I'm also excited to speak on employee engagement today because, as Ashley shared, it is such a key population for us to get in touch with to really help our clients with long-term business objectives.
All right, so looking at our agenda today, we have a few items to cover off on. We're going to begin by having Mai give some background information and share a recent study that touches on the importance of employee engagement as it relates to customer experience. We will then move into how online communities, and particularly what we do here at FieldCycle, are the path to awareness and engagement. We will then give you some examples of insights that we have found in current employee communities and share how you can find these types of insights as well. Lastly, we will open the door for you for a little Q&A. All right, I'm ready to kick things off. Are you ready, Mike?
Yeah, let's get started.
Okay. So let's begin by looking at this table that crosses overall employee engagement with its effect on customer satisfaction. As you can see, companies like Staples, Walgreens, and The Gap have a relatively low amount of employee engagement, which shows in their overall customer satisfaction scores. As the level of employee engagement goes up, we also see a rise in customer satisfaction. As you can also see, employees don't need to be engaged to the point of 100% engagement. There's a sweet spot here around the 70 to 80 mark where we see great customer satisfaction. With our current clients that have employee communities, we see a similar phenomenon in that we're often not necessarily engaging all employees of a company, but the insights that we're uncovering do show an increase in satisfaction with customer CX. Vidya Priya Rao, founder of Innovatus Marketers Touchpoint LLP, says, "Make no mistake, an engaged employee is a crucial element of the customer experience. When the employee experience suffers, so does the customer experience. With empowered employees, the customer engagement and experience improve." And this quote truly sums up what we believe to be true, which we have seen work in our employee communities. So this now leads us to the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? We know for certain that employee engagement and positive business outcomes are correlated, but does engagement truly lead to better outcomes, or do successful companies just have more engaged employees? We believe that the former is true, and we're here to share our side of the story. We've seen firsthand that employee engagement via online communities is a fantastic way to engage with and get in touch with employees on a personal level. This direct interaction has also been seen in the communities that we run to have a direct impact on the customer satisfaction that our clients have seen with their customers. We're now going to have Mai walk us through some past research on this topic to further show the relationship between employee engagement and customer satisfaction.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, as he just said, engaged employees are crucial to customer experience, and I'm here to share some studies that say exactly that. It's no surprise that brands worldwide are looking for the missing factor to drive a customer experience, and the relationship between employees and customers has been researched in depth more than once. Researchers Sylvan Winkler, Cornelius Koenig, and Martin Kleiman used a longitudinal design and looked at the organizational commitments of 755 retail bank employees from 2005 to 2008, along with financial performance and customer satisfaction of the business units they worked in. The study showed that there is a reciprocal relationship between job attitudes and business performance within a one-year time frame. In addition to showing causation, this study looked at the size of the effect on customer satisfaction. Using a binomial effect size display for the link between engagement and subsequent customer satisfaction, the finding produced a score of an R of 0.43. As a quick refresher in statistics, the correlation coefficient R measures the strength and direction of a linear relationship between two variables on a scatter plot. The value of R is always between +1 and -1. A score of +1 indicates a perfect positive relationship. That is, one could safely assume that the correlation between the two variables is completely valid. Now, although 0.43 isn't as close to +1 as one would think it should be, we're going to look at some other examples of R scores to put things into perspective. The journal American Psychologist shared a strong relationship overall, it indicated that a 10% increase in employee engagement drove a 5% improvement in customer service and a 2% lift in profits. If you're wanting to not only give employees a voice, but also lift overall profit, then employee engagement truly is the way to go. Lucky for you, we have found a secret to unlocking employee engagement, and that's by using an online community. Employee engagement is defined as the emotional commitment one has to their organization and its goals. Companies worldwide are tapping into the utter importance of employee engagement, as this is becoming more and more crucial to the survival and prosperity of a business. We have seen a handful of clients approach us with a desire to get to know their employees better for a multitude of reasons. Whether it's to help with an HR objective or feedback on an organizational change, taking this feedback and implementing change can have amazing results. In the end, employees, like customers, want to be heard, and engaging employees gives them the voice that they need. When an employee is happy and satisfied in their work, they're likely going to bring a more positive outlook with them to work, which will lead to more productivity and a better overall product or service. Whether your employee is working in the home office or is face-to-face with your customer base, a raised level of productivity will only have positive effects for your company overall. This brings us into our next section, where we take a deep dive on online communities and share exactly how they are the path to awareness and engagement. We start with the fact that online communities can bring far-flung teams together. An online community helps unite teams of coworkers who may be scattered across locations, whether that be remote employees that work from home or a global organization with offices in different countries. Unlike traditional corporate communication platforms, communities allow employees to interact with each other in a more social setting while providing direct feedback to the organization. We have had clients come to us with a desire to integrate employee feedback from all over the world. Likewise, to drive up overall employee satisfaction, we have had clients with employees in various parts of the world express a desire to see how the employee experiences differ based on location. The ability to not only compare this type of feedback by location, but allow for the integration and socialization of these various groups of employees is something that is truly unique to an online community. This brings us to the notion that communities are a test bed for ideas within an organization. Not surprisingly, the employees of a corporation often know the ins and outs of daily operations, which can sometimes be difficult for corporate to be in touch with. If employees have ideas to share, a community can be a great platform to submit them for consideration. For example, in the retail industry, frontline employees can provide input about store design, merchandise selection, and general employee satisfaction. Getting this type of feedback from employees is invaluable for companies, as this is often knowledge that has no other way of making itself from frontline employees back to the corporate office. Once inside a community, members can give this type of feedback in a host of qualitative venues, such as an open or member-generated discussion, which also prompts other employees to weigh in on the topic as well. We have also seen this type of feedback open the door for further research into the topics that employees deem important. This type of input can also pave the way for larger changes within an organization, which ultimately, again, has a positive effect on overall customer experience. Online communities are also a great way for companies to share internal information. Perhaps you currently send emails to your employees or share company news via an internal intranet. Although both methods can be sufficient, online communities allow brands to share real-time company news with employees, ensuring they're the first to know of any developments before they're shared outside of the company. Likewise, as mentioned before, you can not only share real-time information with employees, but you can get their immediate reaction to the news or announcement. Immediate feedback allows for a direct pulse into how employees are reacting to potential changes. You can also monitor this feedback over time and gauge how employees feel about news as time passes. You can also monitor direct feedback to gather insights into potential problem areas or crisis management, which Nick will cover later in the webinar. Moving along, online communities help with employee retention. An online community can be used as a safe place for employees to voice their frustration and ideas on how to improve morale, company culture, and overall employee satisfaction. A community fosters a two-way dialogue. It allows for not only top-down communication, but the harder-to-reach bottom-up communication. When employees enter the community, there are ways that our teams can ensure their anonymity. Occasionally, clients will request to have all personal identifying information, or PII, stripped from any deliverable and ask that we give the employees nondescript usernames. This lets employees know that nothing can be tracked back to them, which allows for truly candid feedback. In order to ensure employees feel safe in giving this type of feedback, our teams work hard to uphold any promise for anonymity. Interestingly, that brings us to the fact that online communities can also allow for potential employee recognition. A community provides a great way to recognize employees for achievements both at work and in their communities. Employers can ask employees to submit news items to share, allowing workers to be in the spotlight for things that might otherwise go unnoticed. Employees, like anyone else, like to be rewarded for their hard work, and this type of reward can go a long way. As stated before, rewarding your employees for their hard work has the potential to add to overall employee retention. I'm now going to turn things over to Nick, who is going to talk through some of the potential insights that can be uncovered using employee online communities.
Thanks, Mai. Up to this point, we've talked in depth about some of the benefits of engaging employees using an online community, but now I want us to take it a step further and talk about the actual insights that are waiting to be uncovered. I've had the pleasure of working on more than one of these communities, and let me tell you, as a research manager, they're a hotbed of insights. The bonus for me is to see the insights that we've gathered in these communities turn into actionable changes within companies. No matter the size of the business, there's a plethora of insights to be gathered. I'm going to share a few that we have found with you today. So we have fielded many surveys that aim to understand the level of trust and pride that employees hold regarding the company that they work for. One example that really stands out was when we administered a survey that asked employees what their thoughts were regarding representing their employer on one of their social media pages. Employees were asked to select one of two images to upload to their profile as a cover image. One had their employer in the center, and the other had a generic image of the industry that they work in. Surprisingly, most respondents chose the alternate image. The findings shed light on deeper feelings that the employees had about their employer as a company. It was shared a handful of times that employees would prefer to not represent the company they work for because they wouldn't want to be associated with the company at a social level. This was largely due to previous bad press that the company had had because of internal issues. In terms of feedback, our client was grateful to get this insight and able to put together a plan of action to change this type of internal outlook. Since then, we have expanded this research to get deeper insights into how the company can win back their employees' trust and raise a level of pride within their company. Moving forward, I have a great example of the ways in which we pulse employees about their satisfaction with the company they work for. Often we will administer surveys asking employees questions regarding their thoughts and views on management and whether they feel the company provides an environment that makes them want to stay and grow. Overall, this type of research is primarily geared at understanding employee retention and why an employee may stay or leave. Findings have varied, but in one case they showed that employees felt there was a disconnect between what their managers said and what their actions actually were. Although the employees polled shared that they felt their managers were encouraging and promoted their company in such a way that made them want to stay, they also felt that their actions spoke differently. This was a real eye-opener to our client, and they were able to hear direct feedback from their employees on something that could potentially lead them to leave the company. There were internal changes made because of the findings from this survey, and we have since set up additional research to see if these changes can be seen at the employee level or if they feel any different from the initial survey. So next we're going to look at how and why employees come into online communities and participate. Overall, employees can have a variety of reasons behind why they participate. For some, they're going to appreciate incentives, whether monetary or in another form. And for others, they will participate primarily out of a desire to impact change. As we stated before, most employees express a desire just to have their voices heard. Likewise, make no mistake, our community managers are working hard to make the community a fun place for employees to come into. Not every project necessarily needs to be research-based. Some will be lighthearted engagement activities that will promote employees to come in and get better acquainted with the community and their fellow employees. And lastly, this brings us to using online communities as a place for crisis management. Imagine a company has an advertisement that comes out and is met with bad press, or an internal conflict gets out to customers. These are the types of situations that even the strongest companies have difficulty bouncing back from. Although we often think about the customer in these situations, it should also be asked how it affects employee morale. The use of quick polls in community allows our clients to get snapshot data on how employees are reacting to these types of situations. This helps to see if effects of bad media on how employees feel about their company moving forward. In recent news, companies like Pepsi or United Airlines could have truly benefited from hearing this type of feedback after a crisis. Similarly, a company like Uber, who had an actual incident with an employee themselves, would really benefit from hearing what other employees feel about the incident. Employee communities are a great way to pulse your employees and get feedback before a situation really gets out of hand.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mai. That was very informative, and it's no wonder that this is such a hot-button topic, especially when we see that this is a challenge for every industry and every brand out there to figure out how do they keep their employees happy and engaged, because as we see now, it has a direct effect on how you deliver customer service and experiences. So quickly, before we jump into the Q&A section, I just wanted to quickly remind everybody that if you have questions, please enter them into either the question or chat box on the GoToWebinar interface. But with that, I'm going to start with our first question, which is from Steve. And he asked, how do you keep employees engaged? Nick, do you want to start with that question?
Sure. So as I just spoke to, we work with teams here across the board, client success managers, community managers, and research managers. And a big part of keeping employees engaged is when we onboard a client, we make an internal list of potential engagement activities. These types of activities are put in place on weeks when a client doesn't have a research objective necessarily, and they're used as a way to ensure that employees don't feel like they're just coming in and taking the one-off survey, but that the community is kind of a safe place for them to come into to socialize with their coworkers and to continue giving feedback. Mai, do you have any?
Yeah, and we actually just did a webinar recently about employee engagement where Sally Page touches on some of the most successful engagement activities we've done. So I really encourage you all to check that out.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Well, thank you. We have had quite a few more questions come in, so I'll just jump into the next one. So Rebecca asked, how do you socialize the learnings from the community into the organization? Maya, do you want to take the first stab at this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Here at Fuel Cycle, we always like to close the feedback loop with our community members, and in this case, with employees. And that means to take the findings and to share it back into the community. So that could be in a section in an album where we close the feedback loop and let the members know how their survey responses have affected the company, or maybe it was a discussion. We can also integrate it into your company newsletter. Some clients have also created one-sheets where they just distribute it during their internal meetings as well.
Great. So I'm going to jump right into our next question that comes from John, and he asks, anonymous versus private communities, how do you choose?
So when we onboard, this is generally, we'll go over this type of situation with a client, and that often there's compliance issues where the feedback that they're receiving from employees has to be anonymous. This is a rather common situation. And likewise, often clients will want anonymous feedback to get that really candid response from the employee. Employees, when you come into the community and you sign up and you have your entire information tied to you, that can play a role in the type of feedback that you're getting at times. Not always, but it's been shown. And I believe that some clients really value that anonymous feedback from employees. So it just kind of depends on the research objectives that a client has coming into the community, and we hash that all out at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you. So going to the next question that comes from Jamie, she asked, how do you handle disgruntled employees? Mai, do you want to take that question?
Absolutely. Well, the first step is really to identify these disgruntled employees. And so in our Fuel Cycle platform, we're able to tag these members. So perhaps, the employees will take a NPS survey, so we know who are our promoters and who are the detractors of the client company brands. Once they're tagged, we can then follow up with these specific members, perhaps in a live chat, perhaps we can have a separate section just for these members so that we can have a customer service or HR expert in there as well. And also, to potentially isolate them as well so that we don't affect the positive employees.
Great, thank you, Mai. I think that's all the questions that have come in so far. So just wanted to quickly remind anybody before I move in to closing out the webinar, if there are any last-minute questions you're lingering to ask, please get them in there real quick so we can answer them before we leave today. But in the meantime, I'm going to move forward to the final slide that shows Mai's and Nick's contact information. So if you have any questions you may not be comfortable asking today in this webinar, but you definitely want to get some answers, please feel free to reach out to them directly. Because like Dave mentioned, this is something that we've worked with a lot of clients, and they are the experts in this area and can really help you, make a difference and start engaging your employees. Well, doesn't look like we got any more questions, so I guess with that, thank you. Thank you, Nick, for your time. It was good information like always, and we'll just close out until next time.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.